Welcome to our session, Bridging the Gap Between Customer Success and Product. Today, we'll talk about how we build our customer success team and a successful partnership with our product team. Before we start, I'd like to introduce myself along with my teammates. I'm Erica Swint-Williams, Senior Manager of Customer Success, and I lead the Customer Success team here at Mailchimp.
Hi, and I am Gemma Perez, and I am the Manager of Customer Success here at Mailchimp.
Hey there, I'm Margaret Heck. I'm a Customer Success Account Executive at Mailchimp.
And I'm Margarita Caraballo. I'm a Product Manager specializing in app performance, also here at Mailchimp.
As you may have heard in our introductions, we all work for Mailchimp, which is an all-in-one marketing platform for growing small and medium-sized businesses. Millions use our marketing technology to start and grow their business. Our mission is to empower the underdog, which is why it was so important for us to embark on this customer success journey. When I came to Mailchimp in August of 2018, the goal was for me to build Mailchimp's first customer success team, which meant rebranding a client relations team and changing the overall mission and vision. We'll be going through our story of how we came together with product and engineers, anchoring the highlights to our journey through the team development lifecycle, forming, storming, norming, and performing. There are several things that you should consider as you build your customer success team. Who you will serve and why. This was extremely important as Mailchimp has millions of customers. And secondly, what is the best way to segment your customers while scaling your service? Once you know who you will serve and segment your customers, you must determine the best way to help your team work more efficiently. Since we were completely manual, implementing a CRM was our next step. As we formed our CRM, acted as both a record of tracking customers and handling CS activities that should have been driven by a customer success tool. This process didn't last long, and we knew we had to automate some of our processes if we were going to be a proactive CS team with up-to-date visibility in our customers' activities within our product. Like many CS teams, we began to grow and define our scope of work. We found ourselves becoming heavily involved in facilitating resolutions for highly escalated technical issues, which often pointed us to our product team. At this stage of forming, customer success represented the voice of the customer. So as we sought out answers for our customers, we began to push harder on our product teams for timelines and transparency into those escalated issues. Gemma, please share with us what started the storm.
Yes, so this all started with a media company escalating a technical performance issue. They were very frustrated. They had already contacted our support team multiple times, and at that point, they were threatening to leave. So when the issue got escalated to the customer success managers, we documented vaguely their issues and escalated directly to our engineers, really without following the processes that we had in place at that time. We believe that that process would not have helped resolve the issue as fast as we needed to be. So while retaining the customer was our ultimate goal, challenging the process at that time created a lot of tension amongst teams. Our engineers ended up working for 48 hours during a weekend to resolve the customer's issue. And while at the end we succeeded and retained them, we knew that we needed to conduct a retrospective, learn from the situation, and set up scalable processes moving forward. Yeah, Margie, what was your perspective?
Yeah, as the product manager who advocates for performance and scalability of our app, CS customers represented a unique opportunity to act as kind of canaries in the coal mine or an early warning system for utilization as case studies on our system's ability to grow with our users. And while most issues may not necessarily be as a result of performance, there was a valuable research angle that appeared when we were paying attention and filtering through our CS colleagues' encounters. So helping to resolve larger performance issues helps us to lend a hand in not only retaining these customers, but then also planning continued performance work to attempt to mitigate that performance concern for future clients who are still scaling up in that direction. Over time, by establishing that relationship, it enabled us to be more proactive in our handling of scalability instead of reactive. And taking the same example with that media company Hema was working with, myself and two of my teammates were the ones that worked over 48 hours, and not only helped over those 48 hours, but then as the product manager, I took the information we learned in that weekend and began analyzing the results to find possible paths for long-term projects.
Yeah, and during the storming phase, as the CS team, we continued taking on escalations and working on technical issues that should have been worked through support channels. So these led to a lot of frustration. We had to partner with other teams and figure out ways to improve escalations with the goal of having less CSM involvement. These helped us realize that we needed a way to track customer health. We needed to be able to prioritize and focus on those customers that were at risk of churn. We also continue refining our customer segmentation parameters to find ways to best serve the customers that needed the help the most. And at this time, during the storming phase, we also began vetting customer success tools. We knew the CRM that we had implemented and had been using as a customer success tool was not fully meeting our needs. As far as our partnership with product, these issues and product requests came to a boiling point through a lot of customer escalations. They continued. Customer success managers, continued advocating on behalf of customers, and we pushed for updates and fixes. In the height of escalations, key information was still missing and processes were still broken. Engineering often left unequipped with necessary information to move forward. And both the customer success team and engineering, we started to feel friction, and we knew that we had to invest time to figure out how we could work together and what that would mean in the future. Yeah, Margie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And from a product perspective, finding an entry point into products seemed to be a key first step to beginning to learn what information was even necessary and then what context that information should be presented in. What can happen as companies scale is that departments begin to silo themselves in an effort to maintain speed. But this means that conveying need and urgency from one to the other can be a really big struggle because we're not speaking the same language. Finding your initial advocate and guide, in this case, it was me and my team, was key to developing an understanding of how to advocate for yourself in the long term. This was my opportunity as a product manager to better understand a specific customer segment, and the CSM team's opportunity to better understand the metrics and driving levers that impact decision-making elsewhere in our organization. As you're storming, you begin to find out what variables hold true and are relevant to both of you, for example, MRR or monthly recurring revenue, but then what variables differ that you might not have thought about collecting.
And that brings us to the norming stage of this development life cycle. And really what the norming stage is both customer success as a function within Mailchimp, but then also our partnership with Mailchimp, establishing that rhythm across the organization in terms of how we work. And I'll start with customer success, as an individual unit. And in terms of our rhythm and what that looked like, seeing a win for our customers boosted morale across the team regardless. So not only the product issues or the product gaps or those escalated issues, but also things like establishing a strong success plan for a customer or engaging a previously disengaged customer. All of those things allowed us to identify what our common goals were and what would make sense for a shared metric in terms of what customer success was set out to achieve as a team. And that brought us to things like retention metrics, engagement levels, what's feasible in terms of an engagement rate, what's feasible in terms of feature adoption. Alongside identifying those shared metrics and goals, another big win for our team was that we got buy-in from leadership on a customer success tool, which is in fact ChurnZero. And for us, that was so valuable because for us, it said, okay, the organization is starting to see the value in customer success and they're willing to invest in it. And we were really jazzed about that. And I'll say that that ChurnZero has really played an enormous role in terms of moving us from those manual processes that Erica alluded to earlier to more of an automated approach to help reach and attain those shared goals and those shared metrics that I mentioned. On the product side, the sentiment is very similar in terms of seeing that win for a customer actually boosted team morale, not only for customer success and the CSMs on our team, but for the product team as well. And having realized the opportunity to partner in the future, we set up regular meeting cadences. We set up some initial baseline reporting to figure out what are the needs of both of our teams. And if we can outline what those needs are, how can we better serve our entire customer base, not only those customers that are on fire? And Margie, I'll let you elaborate a little bit more from the product side of the house.
Yeah, for us, finding a cadence, it was what was most critical during the norming stage. By establishing a process where CS could advocate earlier, as a company, we can scale to a place where we're less reactive, and your product and engineering teams then have a longer runway in which to find space to investigate the problem and prioritize related work. When we don't have a cadence for communication, we get stuck in this place where reaching out at the last minute when the customer is walking away is our best and only option. But if we're looking for scalable solutions, engineering teams need time to interpret the symptoms, investigate the root cause, ideate a solution, not just a Band-Aid, and then implement. So striking a cadence meant that the teams developed a better sense of evolving sentiment for both our customers as well as for the direction of our product. This way, it allowed our relationship to grow in a way that felt really beneficial to both teams.
And establishing that cadence and rhythm is really what helped us leap into the performing stage of the development life cycle. And the key here is, okay, taking what was working and norming and how do you scale it to show value across the organization. Again, I will focus on both performing as a customer success team as an individual unit and function within Mailchimp, but also in our partnership with our product team. So I mentioned that we got buy-in for ChurnZero. We were able to implement it and, identify some initial processes that we could automate. Performing is really where we took that to the next level to say, okay, what are the more robust feature sets that ChurnZero offers that we can tap into to show value across the organization? And those are things like health score or churn scores, risk factors, predictive factors. So again, that automated approach to something that was previously manual or previously not even there allowed us for more time to focus on proactive retention, spending more time with our customers, and actually driving their outcomes as opposed to fighting fires internally. Taking that data from ChurnZero and paralleling it with the strong success stories that I mentioned earlier helped us tell a really good story internally to the organization to show the value of what our team was bringing to the company. Ultimately, that leads to more resourcing, and what that means is that we can work with more customers. We have more bodies to work with more customers and work with those customers in a more effective way. In terms of our partnership with product, those regular meetings and that initial cadence helped us to ultimately drive not only monitoring of issues that were on fire, but also proactive monitoring, proactive prioritization of bugs or issues based on those metrics that I mentioned, based on revenue, based on retention, based on health score. And really it allowed us to have more data to help come up with longer prioritization times in terms of actually fixing and addressing some of these gaps or issues. Margie, I'll let you elaborate a little bit more in terms of your perspective from the product side.
Yeah, so once we found our cadence and the process that worked at a smaller scale within the product, our next step for this performing section was finding ways to internally market those successes. It helps to drive more interest from other product owners in partnering with your CSM team. While you continue to perform, it's also a great point to begin asking yourself questions regarding the scalability of your current process. What is the efficiency of it? Forming, storming, norming, and performing are continuous cycles. If you can anticipate your next needs or what your evolution will be, you can make your transitions through those cycles as painless as possible. Using the media company as our example again, we performed rapidly expedited work over 48 hours on a weekend about a year ago. But capitalizing on that, since then, the data collected on that user over the weekend has been used to inform and act as a data point for various projects, including one larger scale cross-functional project impacting all of our users this year. And so even if you are firefighting, collecting data and having these good processes and performing on them is really, really valuable to your organization, not just on the product side, but also CS.
Thank you, Margie. As you can imagine, we have learned a lot about our teams and ourselves through this development lifecycle. Here are a few things that we would like for you to take away from our presentation today. As you build your customer success team and you're in that forming stage, always consider your internal stakeholders when creating processes. Start tracking issues and try to tie those issues with revenue when possible. This will help your product teams when prioritizing. And no matter what the situation is, whether you are manual or automated, it is important for you to create something. And when you're working with these product teams and the engineers, ask them what information will be most valuable. Knowing this can alleviate a lot of confusion. After all, both customer success and product should both be invested in creating an optimal customer experience.
Yeah, and if you're in the storming phase as a CS team, I would recommend to not be afraid to challenge the status quo and processes that might not be working. Advocate for the customer. Also create stories. Share stories and data. They are super powerful. Know your audience and make your case. And as you continue working with your product engineering teams, schedule retrospectives after a cross-functional project or an issue you've been working together on. And try to assess what was helpful and what was not. And get everyone in the room, or gather as many variant options and opinions as possible, from engineering, from support, for customer success, from product, from every team that you need.
In the norming phase, I would say, as you're establishing that rhythm and cadence, make sure to celebrate your wins. As customer success, oftentimes we're focused on the growth areas, the opportunity areas, what we could be doing better, but being able to reflect on those wins and successes and figure out what's working can actually help drive success in the future as well. So alongside that, again, look for opportunity as well, even when there isn't an issue on fire or something that's escalated. And as Margie alluded to, as you're working with product, find ways to market those wins cross-functionally to help the rest of the organization who may not be facing off with the customer day-to-day have a sense of what you're seeing on your side.
And when you're performing as a CSM team, maintaining consistency in how we aggregate data and communicate it in a way that's digestible for the right stakeholders is super key. A huge dump of all of your information at once for every stakeholder isn't necessarily helpful. So learning how to tailor that information for the right target audience will help to make sure that you're making the maximum impact with the least amount of data. And then partnering with the right technical resources, make sure that we have the information available readily for product and engineering teams to take on more rapidly. The more information that we have readily available, it means that we spend less time having to bother the user for additional information. And then with respect to working with product and engineering, don't shy away from critical review of your processes or their scalability. Being willing to be critical of all processes is important to making sure that we're able to evolve. And then be proactive and comfortable using the resources your stakeholders make available to you to help you as you scale.
Yeah, and as Maggie mentioned, celebrate the wins. And I would say also have fun together. You know, in our case, we all got together to celebrate. We had retained that large media customer I talked about before. And we also got together to say thank you to those engineers that worked so hard over the weekend. We ate pancakes for lunch, and this gave us an opportunity to know each other better, to build the foundation of our long-term relationship, and to network and socialize outside of the office settings. We feel more connected, actually, to be honest, and these help us collaborate better in the future.
Thank you for joining our session today. All right, welcome to our Q&A for Bridging the Gap Between Customer Success and Product. I'm Erica Swint-Williams, Senior Manager of Customer Success at Mailchimp, and we'll be leading the Q&A for today's session. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping items to cover. To the right of your screen are multiple engagement widgets. These include chat, polling, and a QA tool. If you would like to ask a question, simply type your question into the QA widget located on the right side of the console. And here, your fellow attendees can even upvote the questions they're most interested in. You can also use the live chat widget located on the right side of the console to interact with your fellow attendees. I'll be sure to monitor both channels for questions. So we can get started. I think there are a couple ones that I saw as we were presenting today, and I saw someone mention that they didn't have a customer success tool and they were a startup. I want you to know that you should keep pushing forward. One of the things that I saw in 2018 when I started at Mailchimp is that we were coming in with Excel spreadsheets, and the way that we were keeping track of our customers at the time was, running this spreadsheet and then, checking off who got an outreach for the week, checking off who needed to follow up. And then we started to realize that, there are better ways to doing things, and we had to start making the case. Was the case made before I started? I really think it was. I think, but at the time we just didn't have the data. But what we found as the more we did outreach and the more that we spoke to our leadership and said, look, folks may be leaving and churning right now. And without having some type of tool or some way to allow us to be proactive, what we're finding is we're sending outreach to customers who have already churned. And so the more we made that case and the more I ventured out and looked at different CS tools, I was able to convince some of our leadership to take some time out and look at my findings and look at what potential we had with that CS2. So, I'm proud to say that we are ChurnZero customers. And I'm very proud to say that because of ChurnZero, we are a proactive customer success team. And we right now have a 98% retention rate. So I would say, keep pushing forward. Just because you're just starting right now doesn't mean that you can't make the case. Continue to build that. Bring those retention rates in, bring your engagement rates in, and then start talking about what you could potentially do if you had these tools.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think for us going from reactive to proactive was huge. Not just the amount of time that we spent trying to send outreach or trying to predict what the customer was going to do, just changing that from reactive to proactive was a game changer, not only for the team and when we spend our time, but also, the value that we added to the customer. So definitely keep on pushing, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say, start by gathering data, because even if you're talking about how do you advocate to product, or even how you're talking about how do I advocate to my own leadership for CS tools, the crux of both issues are going to come down to gathering data, right? So if you're talking about how do I advocate to product, well, like I said in my parts of the presentation, it's gathering information that your product team can leverage to inform the roadmap. But the same is true if you're asking for advocating for a tool. So in a lot of engineering teams, how we justify lots of development on a new feature or an old feature is how much toil is going into addressing firefighting. You're firefighting too, right? When your customers are like, I'm gonna leave if this thing isn't fixed, that's a firefight. That's you're firefighting that churn number. So how much extra time are you spending firefighting when you could be spending either expanding your portfolio of customers that you work with, or expanding the number of resources that you're offering to the customers that you are trying to convince to grow with your company? Those are all things that could be making your company money. And those are all data points. And while the goal, the top of the mountain might be to convince your leadership for a tool, whether it's ChurnZero or something else, there are kind of summits, points in that climb up the mountain that you have to hit. And gathering data will kind of be your Sherpa, for lack of a better analogy. So do we want to do some of these Q&A questions?
Yeah, I am looking at, there's one now coming in, I think from Alex. It says, how do you measure success, share metrics between both teams? I think for product right now and CS, we measure success by our retention rates. And then how are we sharing that. We right now we use Jira and we use Zendesk to track the customer feedback. And what we're doing is we're tying all of the things that we partner with product to revenue. And so we meet bi-weekly to have a conversation about those. So we stay connected at the hip. And if we see any problems with like a feature that they are working on or a snag in fixing a bug, we are already talking about it. It's already in Jira, and they've already started to surface that up to different engineering teams across the organization. And I'm sure Margie, you can add to that as well.
Yeah, my advice for this would just be to find out, like, your company will have some type of strategic direction. That's a lot of what your product managers are helping to drive different parts of. So if you can sit down with them and figure out what can I offer this team to equip them to better serve that strategic direction, right? So I focus in performance. That is what my part of the product strategy is performance and scalability. And so the very, very valuable thing to me was the research, like the data that these ladies could provide me with. And so if you can find like what is valuable, then you can start figuring out where is that Venn diagram for where they overlap, which, when we're talking about scalability and performance, people tend to walk away because the thing is not scaling, it is not performing. So conveniently for us, it was retention as a number. Mm-hmm. Now, what success means for the CS team might be different for what the success means for my engineers, but we are both working on that piece of the company's strategy. So find where your overlapping strategy is with that team, and then your levers can be different. So like the percentage that CS is looking for is different from the percentage that performance is looking for, but my team is also looking at performance for the whole application, and CS is looking at the performance for these large customers. So our effective numbers must be different, but the piece of the puzzle is the same.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know we're coming up to time. I'm looking at some more questions. Who owns the rollout of new features to customers, product or CS? I think it's both, right? I think product rolls out the features, but as a customer-centric organization, I think it is up to customer success and other customer-facing teams like our award-winning support team to help our customers understand how to use our features and how to incorporate those into their day-to-day. Remember, the things that we do at Mailchimp is we help our businesses grow. And so when we roll out a product or a new feature to our product, what we're trying to do is help our customers optimize and help them get that feature, incorporate that feature into their business structure now. So how can that help them make more money? How can that help them grow? So we own it. I think the entire company owns it. Product definitely owns implementing it out there, but as a customer success team and customer facing teams, we own getting that out to our customers and making sure that they are successful in using those new features.
Yeah, Mailchimp has a really robust research team on the product side, and they do a lot of market research. And so even for new features, they will partner the market research that we have available and the user research we have available and partner it with a lot of the support data available, because we're constantly hearing through our support channels about new features people would like to see or changes to existing features people would like to see. So instead of just being product centric exclusively, where we only have product driving things, we kind of partner those two things together. So I would say it's a little more of a holistic look at product development, where we're trying to serve both driving the industry forward, but also making sure that we're serving the customers who are paying us now. Mm-hmm. I think the top voted, I think this might be.
Yes,
yeah, I think we're right at time. It looks like we're approaching, we're right at 2:55. So I wanted to thank you for joining us live for our Q&A.